If you can feel other people's energies and consider yourself what could be called an empath, then this very well may completely change your life from the inside out. Now, most people that can feel other people's energies are not even aware that the reason they are able to do so is because it is a survival mechanism as a kid that was developed, that if the energy dynamic is not shifted, there will be an energy of feeling at the whims of everyone else's energy. There can be a pattern of attracting narcissistic or controlling people. There can be a pattern of people pleasing and of merging your own frame of reality of who you are to please people in your life, leading you to continuously abandon yourself over and over again. And when you apply what I'm about to share with you in this video, it will completely transform your life from the inside out. Now, first off, let's talk about that for a minute when it comes to one of the secrets for empaths that completely change everything is understanding that, first off, there is a story from childhood that is on autopilot. And this story is most likely subconscious. But what happens is, as kids, if we did not feel seen, we did not feel heard, we did not feel soothed, and we did not feel nurtured, then we may take it upon ourselves to meet our own needs, or to soothe ourselves, or to ask ourselves, who do I need to be to feel safe? But a lot of times that comes from not having the needs met as a kid. Now, the other side of this is that there is a story that is developed, and beliefs create our reality. So if there is a story that I cannot trust other people, if there's a story underneath the surface that says there's something wrong with me, or mom and dad couldn't meet my needs, there's a story of blame. Now understand that subconscious stories replay themselves over and over again in our lives. So if there's a belief and a story of blame, then most likely what happens is the energy is being projected out to create a villain or to create someone that can't meet your needs, because there's a habitualized emotion there of feeling shame or of feeling guilt. So people reenact that energy because that's what people are in our reality. They're other versions of ourselves that are playing out different energies depending on what's in our energy field. So for a long time, I had the story that other people are trying to control me. That was a story that I had that was on autopilot. There was a story that I had to be a certain way to feel safe, because growing up from 7 to 17, I had someone in my life that was very controlling, manipulative, but always their emotion changed so quick. Who do I need to be? What mood are they in now? So as a survival mechanism, there's this ability to tune, to say, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? And then later on in life, though, there was a story of, now instead of the ex-stepmom is gone, now there's a manager that's playing out that story where things aren't fair, and there's blame. There's the oppressor. There's the villain. This is why it's also important to become aware of the dynamic between mother, father, child. This triangle. And also, because your dynamic and your connection to mother energy, which a lot of times is very relational energy, or father energy, which can be very much time about protection, can be about purpose, can be about boundaries. Your relationship to these two things, whether your needs were or weren't met, will very powerfully overlay your stories about reality. Now, let me show you something else a lot of empaths fall into, and that is the victim, persecutor, rescuer dynamic. This is also a triangle. Lots of triangles today. But what happens is, if as a kid, I felt like a victim of my circumstances, a victim of an oppressor who is the persecutor, and then the rescuer. So this is a triangle right here. And in your life as an empath, as someone that can feel other people's energies, until you learn how to individuate, how to feel empowered for being you, for even thinking different than your parents thought, for setting boundaries and realizing it's not your job to rescue or to fix mom and dad or to merge your frame to make other people happy. You may continue to play in this dynamic. Now, for a long time, and even more recently, I had to break this pattern with certain people in my family because I realized that what I was doing is being the most successful one in my family. I have certain people in my family that maybe, on certain sides of my family, that maybe don't have as much figured out, especially when my mom passed away last year. There were certain people that needed help. And for a while, I was like, okay, because I was also, before my mom passed, I was helping her out with some things. I was the rescuer, the successful son that was helping and paying for a lot of things, and was more of this rescue dynamic. But what happens is, for a while, and after my mom passed, there's certain people in my family that maybe needed help. And by help, what I mean is more so like fixing, or they expected almost a certain type of fixing energy for a while. And for a while, I played that role because I'm like, oh, this is such a crappy situation. I'll continue to pay, fix, help, do all of these things. But eventually what I realized is I was actually enabling them to continue to be victims. I was enabling them to stay in the story of all of this stuff that's happened and how it's not fair, when in fact I could see that by taking back the rescuer energy, I would no longer be projecting onto them the victim energy. Now, sometimes what can happen is when you do that, you may also then be seen as the persecutor, because they may want or need or feel safe or familiar inside this triangle. So one thing that I had to do is realize that when I'm helping or fixing or giving money to help the situation, but also that's enabling people to stay in their victim mentality. And when I stop doing that, you may very well then become the person that there's guilt, there's family guilt sometimes. It's a way of controlling to keep people to continue to do similar things. But what I realized is I was actually enabling for a long time because I could feel people's energy, could feel their energy, wanted to help. But then I realized there's a payoff that I get from helping. I feel worthy. I feel responsible. And that's part of it, is I felt responsible for so long for certain people in my family's energies because they weren't figuring out their stuff, especially once my mom passed away, who was in a way enabling and the rescuer to certain family members in my family. So one thing that I had to do though is I had to look at my role within this. And once I took away and I stopped enabling and I was like, you can figure this out, there's an empowering energy there, completely shifted around the energy pattern and dynamic. But what's interesting and what I learned from this is any side of this. So for a while, I was projecting onto other people this persecutor mentality, this victim, persecutor, rescuer dynamic. I would project this onto people at the 9-to-5 job that I had. It's almost like I needed someone to play that role because it felt so familiar to have that role. It felt so familiar to blame someone from my past. Blaming is an emotion where you don't take responsibility for the energy. This happened to me. And when you say this happened to me, you stay in victim mode. You stay in energy that you continue to have to manage. So one energy secret for empaths that will completely change your life is when you realize that there may be a story growing up that mom or dad could not see, hear, soothe, nurture you in some way. And there may be a story now that your partner, your boss, that someone is not meeting your needs. And what that may be is a story of blame. Maybe you choose people who don't choose you. Well, understand the reason they're not choosing you is to also show you you have a belief there. You have something that is out of alignment, because ultimately, when you're not choosing yourself, you will abandon yourself to make other people happy, but that actually has the opposite effect. That actually repels people. So a huge epiphany is when you take ownership of the story and the belief that this may feel familiar and normalized to have a persecutor in your life, to have somebody that's treating you a specific way, because then you can be in the victim mode where it's there's an energy of not needing to take responsibility because this is just the way reality is. Now, ultimately, what's being avoided as well is the second secret is understanding the cure to protecting your inner child. Now, we all have an inner child in part of us that we may not be seeing, hearing, soothing, or nurturing. And therefore, that part of us is looking to get its needs met in the outer reality. And what that inner child is very afraid of is tension. Because think about it, an empath that can feel other people's energies, they've developed that ability because tension in the childhood household was bad. To avoid tension, who do I need to be or how do I need to be validated, to be good enough? But the interesting thing is that to be validated or good enough is a dirty high compared to love, which is a clean, pure energy. It is the substitute for love. And I would argue that many empaths think they want love. They think they want to be nurtured, soothed, seen. But in fact, putting on a show, putting on this change of frame for every person you meet is one way to guarantee you will never feel intimacy. Because part of being in tension and feeling tension is understanding that when you are the real you, there will be some tension there. Not everyone's going to like it. But you will also avoid tension. You may be avoiding the breakthroughs in your life. You may be avoiding you starting your own business. You may be avoiding expressing yourself out in the world because subconsciously tension equals bad. What's funny is when you start to lean into tension more so, you find that there's not only a magnetic quality, but there's a part of you that actually feels more safe inside of it. Now, not in a toxic form of tension, but in a way, it reaffirms who you choose to be. So for example, when I started to protect my own inner child, and part of this was I developed a relationship with my inner child, the sensitive Aaron that I could see, that I had like an image of my mind. And I have a guided meditation for the inner child if you want to check it out. I'll go ahead and link it below inside my High Vibe Tribe community. I have meditations in there, and one of my meditations is the inner child meditation, which will help you connect to your own inner child, see, hear, soothe, and nurture them so that they feel more relaxed, and then you will feel more relaxed because your nervous system is a way connected to that part of you. But when I started to express the things I really felt, the things I really thought, what ended up happening is sometimes people didn't like that. And what happens is when they didn't like that, I could see the individuation there of what's their stuff versus what's my stuff. My stuff is to express how I really feel. My stuff is to realize it's not my responsibility to manage their tension. So if somebody says something, does something, asks something of me, and I don't want to do something, but I feel guilt, that's the control mechanism. To be loved, to be accepted, I have to be this way. Instead, I would express how I really felt, and then some people may have not liked it in the moment, but then there was respect there. It was incredible how much different people responded to me when I started to stand in my own frame of reality. When I started to also, I think part of my individuation process, if I think about it, was also me getting on YouTube and making videos back in 2017, was me changing my self-image, because then I was leaning into tension. Even like doing live events and running live events with hundreds of people there. There was a part of me that was like, you know, being somebody that can feel feeling the energy of a crowd. First off, I think I was talking about this to someone I met at the gym, saw at the gym yesterday, who's just starting to do shows and things like that. And we were talking about the energy of a crowd. What I said is interesting is some people get really high on the energy of a crowd. Like literally doing a live event, there are people that there's a very high dopamine rush from running a live event. To where literally days afterwards, you need to recoup and like almost not do anything because your energy is so kind of sensitive. And there's so much like a dopamine crash almost. There's some people though that thrive on that. They're almost addicted to it. The high that comes from lots of people's attention, from a lot of people seeing you in a certain way, especially when you have a YouTube channel with lots of followers and you go somewhere and everyone's like, not everyone, but a lot of people are like, have this like effect, and some people get high on that. And one thing to become aware of is even running live events, there was tension when it comes to getting into the unknown of having 300-400 people in a crowd. But what happens is that tension can be transformed into a flow state, into alignment. However, the tension can be avoided. And when the attention is avoided, you're avoiding your own growth. You're avoiding this new you. You're robbing other people from knowing the real you. So one of the energy secrets of protecting your inner child is understanding what I call the individuation process. Carl Jung calls the individuation process of separating from mom and dad's expectations of you, and also subject-object connection. What is you versus what is not you? When you think it is your responsibility to manage other people's emotions, you're making something that's not your responsibility your responsibility. So no wonder you feel tired when you go out in public. No wonder if you feel tired when you're around people for a certain period of time. When they're talking about things they're going through, or just through the energetic resonance, you're feeling bombarded by it because you're taking on the responsibility. You're not feeling the separation between you and them. And that's one of the things with empaths. They feel so connected to everything. We're all one consciousness. Well, that's true, but also what is also true is we're also individuated units of consciousness that are meant to be having our own perspectives, our own experience. So feeling the separation between you and other people can be one of the most powerful things you ever do. I call this the frame technique. And I have that of meditations and YouTube videos to show you how to do this. I'll link one at the end of this video. But understand, feeling the separation is a very strong energy practice towards feeling safe in your own body. And the first time I ever experienced this that inspired the frame technique, part of it, because another part of it was my shadow work coach named Doug, was that there was someone in Costa Rica that was an energy teacher, and at the front of the room, she's like, everyone, project your energy at me. Everyone in the group, all 40 people, were projecting their energy at the front of the room. And she said that when people do that, it's a repelling energy. She can feel it. It feels intrusive. She said, now everyone, bring your energy back in your body. Bring your energy back in your body. Bring your energy back in your body. And as you do that, she says she feels a magnetic effect. She feels drawn into the crowd. So at my live events sometimes, I'll put people and they'll do this with each other. Feel the projection and feel the separation. And you feel the energy difference. And then you realize some things are some people's things to deal with, not yours. So now let me move to the third part of this energy secret, is understanding that people pleasers, or then people with nice guy syndrome, if you've ever heard of that, not expressing yourself is a side effect of being afraid of intimacy, being afraid of really being seen and heard, of really being connected to other people. It's a way to guarantee that you won't connect to anybody. This is why also you'll see avoidance and anxious attachment people tend to attract each other. They're both afraid of intimacy. Even though the anxious is leaning in for love and desires love, if they were to really be met with that, a lot of times it's not comfortable, and so they continue to choose avoidant people that can't really give it to them. Or they're just not attracted to people that are emotionally secure. So part of this is being aware of what you are afraid people will see and opening up your heart and becoming familiar with that energy. One of the most transformative experiences I've had in my life was when I did something called family constellation therapy, where I went to Sedona for this, and I had other people basically that were channeling, sounds pretty esoteric, that didn't know nothing about my family. I barely even knew anything about certain sides of my family. But on my mom's side of the family, my mom ran away when she was young, had foster parents. I didn't know a lot of the family dynamics. There are people that were part of this family constellation therapy practice that were brought in who did not know me. And they played certain people in my family. Someone played my mom. Someone played my mom's dad. Someone played my mom's mom. Someone played me. And what was very interesting is through watching this, I was able to see a lot of the energies that were subconscious in my family system that resonated without them knowing anything. It was bizarre. One of the things though at the end that I'll share is at the end, I actually, instead of the 70-year-old guy that was playing me, I actually laid in the arms of this woman that was playing my mom, who looked kind of similar to my mom and also was like carrying the energy of her through, throughout this experience. And what she did is the nurturing. I was like laying in her arms, like my head was laying in her lap, and she was like nurturing me by like, sounds kind of weird, I know. She's like rubbing my head, and she was basically saying the things that I did not hear when I was a kid because my mom was going through her own emotional process, because my mom went through a lot of trauma. And as that was happening, as she was nurturing me, there was this pain, this sharp pain of fear inside of my heart, which was so surprising to me. Why would I be feeling this? This is unconditional love. And it reminded me as well as this one time the second time I ever did ayahuasca was in 2019. And I went to this life transformation place. No, it was in 2018. I went to this life transform. It was in 2017. Now that I remember. It was at the end of 2017. I went to this life transformation spa in Costa Rica where it was legal. And on the second or third night of Mother Ayahuasca experience, I felt so much unconditional love in my heart that I thought I was going to die. I was afraid of it. I was like, go away. I want you to go away. I felt so much unconditional love. It was scary. And I always remembered that. But then when I was having this family constellation experience months ago, I felt this pain in my heart. It reminded me of that. What if love and very expansive love is just, there's this sharp pain. And what happened is I sat with that emotion and I breathed and I could feel my body kind of shaking in this weird way where it was like releasing energy. And I felt this huge opening. And I sat with that tension. I sat with that uncomfortable energy. And then it turned into a love and a warmth. And for that period moving forward, I felt so much more open. And even now, I feel so much more open, so much more available to the love inside of myself and to my own heart. And it completely has changed the way people respond to me. It's changed the way that I relate to other people. Because a lot of times as an empath, you may feel people's energy and might say, I'm just going to do my own thing. And you end up blocking love. You end up blocking connection. You end up attracting people at the surface level who can't really meet you because that feels normal. That feels safe. That feels familiar. And one of the things I want to invite you the invitation to really look at is opening up your own heart. Is connecting to yourself in a very powerful way. And understand that it's not your responsibility to ease the tension in your household. It's not your responsibility to make your parents happy. It's not your responsibility. But it is your responsibility to take ownership over the story. It is your responsibility to choose to lean in tension and to protect your own inner child, to develop a relationship with your inner child. It is your responsibility to be open and have the courage to be intimate. That's your work to be doing. So if you want a video that shows you more on the frame technique, how you can apply it in your life, how it will completely change your energy from the inside out, I will go ahead and link that video right here. Welcome to the frame technique, meditation, and activation. This very